This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Last week, we discussed how to grow vegetables in partial sun. This week, we learn how to protect vegetables from too much sun. Curtis Swift is an extension agent at Colorado State University. He says shading plants from intense sunlight in hot weather can increase production. Tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and okra and other members of that family drop flower buds and young fruit when the plant temperatures exceed 32 degrees Celsius. Plants can get sunburn. Yellow spots may appear on their leaves and fruit. These areas can become thin and white as plant tissue is affected. Curtis Swift says shade can help correct these problems. What it does is it actually allows the plant to give off adequate water, which cools the tissue. He suggests shading plants with bed sheets, shade cloth, or brush. In other words, sticks and branches. Cut them about a meter long and stand them in the ground on the south and west sides of plants. Anything you can put over the plant. A lot of people can cut brush at the edge of the field and stick that into the soil on the south and west side of the plant and provide some shade. Curtis Swift says if you use cloth sheeting, suspend it at least 5 centimeters above the plants. That way there is enough space for bees to fly around. Be careful not to cover plants too closely, which could trap heat and defeat the purpose of shading. People can also buy canopies to shelter their plants. Some canopies have narrow strips of metal or wood to provide either sunlight or shade, depending on the position of the sun. Curtis Swift says shading works with field crops as well as vine crops, like squash. People sometimes plant shrubs or trees to shade their vegetables, but he says tree roots compete with the vegetable roots. The veggies may not get enough nutrients and water. Now here are a few comments on last week's report about shade growing. Ko from South Korea wrote, "I can't imagine plants in the shade for most of the day without sunshine. That's a really creative idea." Andy in Chile wrote, "This is an interesting article, but you forget that the shadow allows the growth of the fungi." And Slava in Croatia recalled, "Once I grew small tomatoes on a balcony under a roof. Sun shone there only in the afternoon. In October, the plants had only a few green tomatoes. I took them inside behind the window, and they had ripe fruits on Christmas and the entire winter." For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
English Agriculture Report. Today we discuss the greenhouse effect. Farmers and gardeners have long used greenhouses to extend the growing season in cold weather. Now, hoop houses are gaining popularity. Hoop houses are sometimes called temporary greenhouses or passive solar greenhouses. A hoop house is basically a metal frame covered with plastic or other all-weather material. A common design looks like a high tunnel. Unlike a greenhouse, which uses a heating system, a hoop house is heated by the warmth of the sun. Now, the United States Department of Agriculture has announced a program to help farmers who want to build hoop houses. The department, through its Cooperative State Research, Education, and Extension Service, has been supporting a project in Michigan. That state has a short growing season. As part of the research project, 9 farmers were given materials and trained how to build and use a hoop house. The results showed that well-managed hoop houses can grow high-quality crops. However, crops are not the only things that grow well. The research found that weeds grow faster in a hoop house. Weeding, seeding, and watering requires at least as much work as crops grown in the open air. The researchers also advise growers to add compost material to the soil in hoop houses to build nutrients. Elliot Coleman is an organic farmer and a writer in Maine who has helped popularize the idea of 4-season farming. His ideas about hoop houses sounded good to John Birnbaum in the horticulture department at Michigan State University. Professor Birnbaum tried hoop houses on the student organic farm at Michigan State and had success. Project director David Connor says it was a test drive for the research on private farms. The agricultural economist points to the demand for locally grown crops. People are hungry for good, fresh vegetables, he says. Hoop houses for winter growing can even be found at the White House, where First Lady Michelle Obama has a vegetable garden. The houses are small because of limited space on the south lawn. A hoop house specialist at Michigan State University, Adam Montry, has videos on YouTube explaining how to build one. You can go to voaspecialenglish.com and find a link to his videos and also a link to our videos on YouTube. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. Irrigation systems can make a big difference in agricultural production. Irrigation can also improve the lives of farm families. However, a new study says bringing water to dry areas can also spread malaria. The study describes how irrigation water can lead to an increase in malaria cases, an increase that can last for years. Malaria is spread by mosquitoes. The insects reproduce in standing water. So when a dry area is irrigated, the disease can appear and spread. Mercedes Pasquale is a scientist at the University of Michigan. She and her team studied areas in northern India where irrigation systems were built over a number of years. They compared how malaria progressed with the spread of irrigation. She and the other scientists found that after farmers began irrigating their crops, the risk of malaria rose sharply. At first, the team thought the number of cases rose because there was little effort to control mosquitoes. But the study found that was not the case. The researchers found that high rates of malaria continued for 10 years or longer, even after mosquito control efforts were in place. Mercedes Pascual suggests that irrigation projects need to limit places where mosquitoes might reproduce. She also says health officials may need to try other methods of malaria prevention that would work for long periods of time. The researchers agree that irrigation helps farming in areas with low rainfall. But Mercedes Pascual and her team discovered that irrigation also can bring years of high rates of malaria. The only way to avoid the problem is through better planning and control measures. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the Agriculture Report in Special English. Poinsettias are the best-selling potted flowering plant in the United States, and they are a traditional part of Christmas celebrations. That is why almost all of them are sold in the wintertime. The Department of Agriculture estimates that Americans bought $250 million worth of poinsettias last year. The poinsettia is native to Central America and needs warmth to grow. Bright red poinsettias are the best known, but there are about 100 different kinds in colors including white, pink, yellow, and purple. The flowers of the poinsettia are very small. Around the flowers are colorful leaves called bracts. These bracts are what give the plants their beauty. The poinsettia is named for Joel Robert Poinsett from South Carolina. In 1825, President John Quincy Adams appointed him as the United States' first minister to Mexico. He saw the colorful plants growing in the wild there. He liked them so much that he sent some cuttings back to the United States. People who are allergic to the latex produced by rubber trees can develop a mild skin rash from poinsettia plants. Babies and pets that chew on the plants can get sick. But experts say the plant is not as poisonous as some people think. Then there is the question of how to say poinsettia. Do not be surprised if you hear someone say poinsettia. Both pronunciations are common. In the 1920s, Albert Ecke and his son Paul became interested in the poinsettia's ability to flower in winter. Paul Ecke thought it would be a good plant for Christmas time. That they started a farm in California